welcome to Profiles of Positive Role Models. I'm Maureen Larkins. Each month we profile an entrepreneur or a person in our community who is making a positive impact. And today we have with us Mr. Omar Aziz, who is most commonly known, I guess, as Omar the Pie Man. Welcome, Omar.
Thank you, Maureen.
I'm glad you could join me this year. Your story about the pies fascinated me, and I want you to tell our guests today a little bit about the Omar story.
Well, as you may or may not know, Omar was not always in the pie business. He actually was born in Mississippi, and he was of the mindset where he really couldn't conform to the things that were happening in Mississippi in the 1920s, 1930s.
Now, this Omar you're referring to is your dad.
This was my dad.
Right.
And he got into an altercation with some young Caucasian guys. And in Mississippi, if you got into a fight with young Caucasians back then, you know, your life was really marked. So my grandmother, his mother, told him he needed to leave Mississippi if he was going to live past 20. So he jumped the train and came to New Orleans with no money in his pocket. And he needed a way to support the family. So he started working for Likes Brothers, actually unloading cargo off the ships. And he traveled throughout the world. He went to Asia, Africa, China. And it was in Indonesia that he contracted malaria. And I don't know if you're familiar with malaria, but it's the kind of disease, if it's not treated right away, it'll kill you. My dad was suffering from high fevers. And they rushed him to the hospital, and the doctors began to say, Omar bin Abdulaziz, Omar bin Abdulaziz, which translated in his mind, hold on, you're going to live, you're going to make it. And he lived. And he came back from that trip and decided he might want to take care of his family in a different way. So he came back home. My mother always baked pies and cakes around the house, so one day my dad took these pies and put them in a box and walked across the bridge from our home in Gentilly into the St. Bernard housing project.
To sell pies?
To sell pies.
Okay.
On the street. And for the life of me, as a youngster, by this time I was the youngest in the family. There's 5 of us. I have a brother named Wilbur, I have another brother named Alvin, sister named Doris, and another brother named Joseph. And because my dad had that near-death experience, he changed his name to Omar bin Abdulaziz.
Oh, I see.
And since I was the last born in the family, they named me Omar ibn Aziz, and that's really been the story of my life, growing up behind Dillard University in the 7th Ward with a name like that.
With Omar.
With Omar. So my dad started this pie business, he and my mom, and supported the family that way for many years.
Selling pies in the housing development?
Selling pies on the street, started out in the housing development, and eventually worked his way throughout the French Quarter, the CBD area, and he became known as Omar the Pie Man.
And then what happened after that point? Because you know the Omar story goes a whole lot deeper than just your dad selling pies out of a box.
Absolutely. Well, he walked the streets of the French Quarter for many years, and I was about age 13 at this point. And you know, as a 13-year-old, I really didn't want to have anything to do with the pie business. I thought baking was for girls. And you know, kids are cruel when they ask, you know, what kind of work does your father do? And I say pie man, and you get these really laughs. Oh, your dad is a pie man. So I really was embarrassed by the fact that my dad was walking around the street selling these pies as a young boy myself. And it didn't change until one day my mother asked me to bake some cakes for a jazz fest. I said, bake cakes, Mom, get real, that's for girls, I have time to do that. First, I got a name like Omar ibn Aziz. Now you want to make me bake cakes. My dad is a pie man. Come on, give me a break.
So is that when you first got involved in the baking business?
That's when I first got involved.
How old were you then?
13 years old.
Okay.
I didn't have any money in my pocket, so I said, what the heck, I'll give it a shot. And ended up making 3,000 of these little banana nut breads, and they sold that weekend at the Jazz Fest.
Okay, so you like baking after that point, huh?
$3,000 in one weekend. I said, look out, Betty Crocker, here we come. Might not be for girls after all. And from that day forward, I think I was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug and hadn't looked back. In the 1980s, when I graduated from high school, went on to college, started selling pies in the dormitories at Bienville Hall at the University of New Orleans. And then we opened the test market location in 1982 because my professor was always talking about test marketing. So we actually put the theory into practice.
So were you studying marketing in college?
I took a course called BA 1000, and marketing was a part of that course.
Okay.
You learned every segment of the business. But marketing was always something that fascinated me. So we opened this test market location in '82, and that first year, a gentleman walked in by the name of Barry Wood, well-dressed Caucasian gentleman, about 45 years
Where
old.
was the test market set up at?
This was in
Where was the location?
in the marketplace at 1015 Decatur, right across the street from the gazebo.
In a French market.
In
then?
the French, right across from the French market. We're
Okay.
actually in what they called one of the first malls in the French Quarter. It was
All right.
a place called the Marketplace. So we operated there for a year. We developed color schemes, logos, concepts, and systems that were transferable. And when Mr. Wood walked in, he noticed that this was a concept that they would be interested in putting into the Jackson Brewery. So he invited me out to a presentation. Darrell Berger had purchased this old abandoned brewery and transformed it into what is called the Jackson Brewery today. On the third floor in the Jack's Brewery, they had what they called Jack's Fest. And when he said Jack's Fest, I thought about Jazz Fest.
And you were thinking about those
I was
3,000 banana
thinking,
nut breeds.
Absolutely. And I figured if we could do this on a yearly basis, then we could really begin to expand the family business. And that was really the beginning of retailing for Omar's Pies.
Okay. I'm Maureen Larkins, and we're talking with Omar Ivy today about Omar's Pies. Now, this is going a little bit further than that because you missed the best part of the story. Once you got to Jack's Brewery, then what happened?
Well, we opened the first retail location in Jack's Brewery in 144 square feet, right on the heels of the World's Fair. We went from doing $12,000 a year in the test market location to doing well over $150,000 a year. I thought I struck gold. I said, this is it. If we could just duplicate this, you know, we could really develop a concept that we can bring all across the country.
Right.
So the following year, Canal Place approached us about opening a location in Canal Place. So in 1986-87, we opened another location in Canal Place at the foot of Canal Street. And then the following year, Riverwalk came to town, and they approached us about opening the store in Riverwalk. So at this point, we went from $12,000 a year
To three stores.
to 3 stores doing well over $250,000. I was still in my early 20s, and I felt like by the time
Life
I
was
was
good.
30, I was going to be a millionaire. But the bottom fell out. And during the 1980s, when the economy was going through world spin, Omar's went through a bankruptcy. We lost the retail locations. I had a chance to actually live out the leases and really took a step backwards, or took a step to the side, and really began to evaluate and process that whole experience.
Now let's go back a little bit, because when you open up those stores, you weren't baking the pies and the bread at that time. A lot of people who become entrepreneurs, they think, hey, I can cook, I'm going to open up a business. But remember you were telling me about how you had an interest in marketing?
Absolutely.
So you weren't actually baking the bread and the pie at that time. You were more like running the business.
Right. I was managing the retail expansion. We still had a production facility that operated, and that production facility hired bakers who actually made the products under the supervision of my mother and her recipes. So those products were manufactured by our production facility, and we actually did the baking on site for each of the stores.
Oh, really? Okay.
So those pies were coming hot out of the oven. It's nothing like a hot apple pie or hot sweet potato pie.
So that's when you got your bug bite, I guess you would say, of being an entrepreneur. You've done other things since then. You have a real deep interest in being an entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, you know, entrepreneurship has really become my life mission. Growing up in the family business, I realized the importance of ownership. My theory is that no one should go through life without getting their piece of the economic pie. So I started doing workshops on college campuses on the subject, getting a piece of the pie, a recipe for entrepreneurial success, and developed an equation that I quite often use as K plus A plus C equals EQ.
Now, what does all of that mean?
Well, that simply means that when you're in the process of building, you need to learn. You need to gain knowledge. The K is for knowledge. But knowledge is no good if you just sit on it.
So if you
need
want to be an entrepreneur, you can start with the knowledge part as being knowing your product, and
Right.
your process, and your
But
procedure.
even before knowing your product, you need to know yourself. You need to take an inventory of yourself because running a business is not as easy as pie.
Oh, I know that's true.
So you really need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. So that K really applies to self-knowledge as well. And then once you master self, then you move on to the mastery of your particular interest. In my case, it was business, so I learned everything I possibly could about business and about entrepreneurship. But knowledge is no good unless you, A, put it into action.
Right.
And you can't put it into action for 1 year or 2 years. You must make a long-term commitment. So I'm committed to not only selling pies, but also teaching people how to get a piece of the pie.
Okay. I'm Maureen Larkins, and we're here today talking with Omar the Pie Man, about his formula for success. Now, we've gone through knowledge, and we've gone through
Action.
action. Next step.
Commitment.
With action, let's go back just a second about action. Is that where the money part comes in? You have to kind of know how to financially set your business up.
Absolutely. In the earlier stages of Omar, we recognized early that we needed to develop infrastructures to be able to monitor cash flow. I can remember the days at the Jazz Fest where, you bring in all these dollars, and at the end of the day, you have to count them.
What a wonderful experience.
Put that rubber band around it, put it in the money bag, and make your daily deposits.
I'm looking at your face
action.
glow. Most entrepreneurs love to have that experience. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't. They get caught up with taking all those cash dollars in and not necessarily bringing them to the bank.
Or you have to bring them to the bank.
Yeah.
The only way to monitor your cash flow is you got to keep accurate records of how that money is coming in,
Right.
and how it's going out. The income and expense, the P&L, and being able to read financial statements is very critical to success in business.
So we've got our knowledge and our action, and what comes next?
The commitment. You need to commit to your dreams. If you believe in your dreams strong enough, you really need to make that long-term commitment, because it's not going to happen overnight. No. It's a process. And then and only then can you achieve economic, 1E, empowerment, 2Es, for you, the entrepreneur. That's where the E cubed comes in. So you got K plus A plus C equals E cubed. And that's really been a guiding paradigm for me over the last 10 years.
So you can make those daily deposits.
I love making daily deposits.
Having the knowledge, the action, and the commitment. Now tell me a little bit more about commitment, or tell our audience a little bit more about commitment, because when you're running a business, commitment is not 9 to 5, I quit, I'm knocked off for the day.
In fact, you really become consumed by the enterprise to the point where you really have to try to create a balance, because you can become overly consumed by your business. But it's definitely not a 9 to 5. On average, you might put in 16, 18 hours a day. And it's a full-time effort. So you really have to have the belief in yourself and the ability to make it happen.
Right.
And I also, because I was so involved in pies, I developed this pie paradigm, which is P-I-E-S. You need to be physically fit because you need the energy.
That's the P.
You need to constantly expand your intellectual capital. That learning process needs to continue. You need to be in check and in control of your emotions, because people will try to press your buttons, and you need to stay focused.
Right.
And you need to have some kind of a spiritual base, whether you call God, Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, whatever you call that being or that supreme force, you need to have some kind of spiritual base to guide you through this process of becoming a successful entrepreneur.
So what's been your biggest reward, I guess, as being an entrepreneur over the years, since, I guess, age 13?
Well, the biggest reward has been really helping people. That really led me to some of the work that I'm doing now. I really enjoy the idea of being able to bring somebody into my business and watching them earn salaries from that and being able to improve the quality of their lives. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is all about. Once you make millions and billions of dollars, you can become philanthropic and really help humanity. And to me, that's the biggest joy of being a successful entrepreneur, being in position to help others.
So the Omar Pie story, when did it kind of come to an end? What happened after the stores closed up?
The story is still, stay tuned, there's more to come. The story hasn't ended yet. You know, I think that, you know, once you find out your true mission in life, that mission does not end. It's eternal. I hope that I can leave a legacy, not only with my family business, but a legacy of entrepreneurship and being able to teach others about ownership.
Or teach them how to get their own piece of the pie.
How to get their piece of the pie. Absolutely.
I'm here with Omar Izee. This is Maureen Larkins. We're going to take a break just for a few moments, and when we come back, Omar, I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now, post Omar's Pies, in reference to the New Orleans Job Initiative. We'll be back in just a minute.
Be more than delighted. Thank you.
Child of the city. I've seen barriers. Some are hard as steel. Some are invisible. Some are black. Some are white. They divide us from one another, and they separate us from our potential. I see the barrier. So I know what stands between me and what I must do. I am a child of the city and a warrior for change.
In Louisiana, there are more than 18,000 reported cases of HIV infection. More than half of those reported cases are in the Metro New Orleans area. Food for Friends fills the nutritional needs for those living with HIV and AIDS by delivering more than 500 meals daily and by supplying non-perishable food through its food pantry. You can be a part of this partnership for life by calling No AIDS Task Force. You can make a difference.
And here comes Chris Hill, 4 feet 6 out of Jefferson Elementary, a confident young man with a great stride. But, uh-oh, he might be in trouble now.
Hey, Chris. Want to get high? No way, man. That stuff's for losers.
Oh, what a move! Chris Hill never hesitates, just blows past that guy. Bob?
You're right, Mike. Look, Chris is known for his great head shake. Then he shifts his weight to the right foot, finds a hole, and zip, he's out of there.
Spectacular, just spectacular. This kid's got a bright future.
Your life is moving. You might miss the warning label. Even a few serious sunburns can increase your risk of getting skin cancer. So, choose your cover.
With Profiles of Positive Role Models, and today my guest is Omar Izee, formerly known or currently known as Omar the Pie Man. Just wanted to mention that Omar was written up in Entrepreneur magazine back in 1993.
Actually, between 1982 and up to recently, we've received quite a bit of local and national coverage and publicity.
Accolades are always great. Tell us now about the work that you're doing with NOJI, which is the New Orleans Job Initiative.
Right. The New Orleans Jobs Initiative is funded through the Annie Casey Foundation. Annie Casey is the philanthropic arm to UPS. And Casey believed in the fact that people should not live in poverty, particularly children. And in New Orleans, we have a 51% poverty rate among children, which is alarming. And when you have those extremes between the have and the have-not, it creates problems. So Casey really put up its money where its mouth was and decided to start this jobs initiative in 6 cities. And New Orleans is one of those cities. And I was really brought in to spearhead the individual development account program.
So how did you go from Omar's Pies to Noji?
Well, it was a wonderful transition. Being in the corporate environment and learning business and recognizing the need to give back to the community, this was like the coming together of both worlds. Under the leadership of Darryl Burrows, who's our executive director, he has really created a wonderful learning environment, and the corporate environment exists here at this nonprofit organization.
So what happens at Noji? Who are your clients or your customers?
Our clients are individuals who live in Orleans and Jefferson Parish between 18 and 35, and they usually fall within the poverty rates.
Okay. So how do you find these people?
We find them through our community-based organizations. We work closely with the Jeremiah Group, All Congregations Together, and a tenant-wide association which governs and manages most of the housing developments in the New Orleans area.
So once you find these people or they find you, then what happens?
They go through an assessment. In fact, we'll be having an assessment on the 23rd of January at the Christian Baptist Church on Conti, on the corner of Conti and Claiborne, where the old skating ring used to be.
I remember the skating rink.
Yes, I used to go skating there myself. So we'll be having an assessment. So once they are recruited by our faith-based organizations and our community-based organization, we look for people who have what we call an awakening. They're ready to make a positive change in their lives. And then they come through a screening where they're screened for drugs. They have to be drug-free. And we do a literacy exam in math and English. But it really tests the real basic skills. And then they move on from that into what we call our pre-employment.
So how do you get a person who's below the poverty level, who hasn't had this awakening yet? I mean, I'm sure you have to convince them a little bit about this awakening. What do you tell them? What is it that you're going to offer to them?
Well, we offer free tuition-free training and workplace culture, what we call our job readiness 21st success principles. Then we link, because we're linked closely with the business community in 4 sectors, healthcare, office systems, manufacturing, and construction. Those individuals sit on our committee and they help design the curriculum. So we have access to jobs after they finish the hard skills. So they go through soft skills, which is our pre-employment, then they go through hard skills training, and then they're linked with those 4 sectors for employment.
Do you guarantee them employment, or what happens?
Well, we can't guarantee the employment. What we do is guarantee them the opportunity for interviews. We connect them closely with the healthcare sector, with the manufacturing sector, with the office systems, which is coming online, and with our construction sector. So they have engagement, and it's really the participants' responsibility with our assistance to really go out there and sell themselves. And we give them the skills and the tools to go out there and do that.
Okay. I'm Maureen Larkins, and today I'm joined with Omar Izzi with the New Orleans Job Initiative. Tell me how the Noji program links to your ideas about being an entrepreneur.
Well, entrepreneurship in my mind is about ownership. It's one thing to get a job that's paying $7, $8, $9 an hour, which most of our participants receive.
Okay.
But once they receive that first paycheck, what do you do with it? Do you go to the local quick cash place and cash it and put the cash in your pocket?
A lot, yeah.
Or do you open up a bank account and develop a saving and investment strategy so that you can begin to accumulate wealth for your family? That's where the whole idea of ownership comes in. We're developing now a program called the Economics of Success. Is a financial literacy curriculum that's in conjunction with the IDA Collaborative. And we'll be doing the financial literacy training for anyone that comes into an IDA program.
Now, what do you mean by financial literacy?
Financial literacy, we teach people about money. It's really, as Jesse Jackson said in his book, it's really all about the money. We teach people, once you make money, take for instance a moment. If you could take your dollars and make your dollars your employee and put your dollars to work for you.
Okay.
And make that money grow so that you can begin to accumulate assets and build wealth for your family. So it's about ownership. It's about teaching people how to manage their funds, how to look at their income and expenses, develop a budget, and develop a strategy so that they're not living from paycheck to paycheck.
Well, when you're still only making $7 or $8 an hour, how do you get the person to the next step?
Well, through the financial literacy is the first step. But we also provide an incentive for them to save. If you put in $1, we'll match it as high as 4 to 1. And you can use those monies to purchase a home, to start a business,
okay,
to further your education, or for transportation.
So the NOJI link to Omar the Pie Man is really that starting your own business part?
Well, starting your own business and the whole idea of ownership, you know, because your money becomes your employee. And if you understand how businesses work and how businesses incorporate their labor in terms of creating wealth, now your money, once you make that money at this particular company that you work for, that money needs to go to work for you. So you need to be an educated employee of your money, employer of your money.
Okay. Tell our audience again the segments of the industries that you focus on in terms of the NOJI program.
There are healthcare, office systems, which is coming online this year, construction, and manufacturing.
Lots of work in this area. For
Lots
those
of work.
Lots of work. I thank you for joining us today. It's been a wonderful conversation, and if people are interested in finding out more about the NOJI program, how can they get in contact with you? Is there a telephone number?
Yes, they can call 529-2600. That's 529-2600.
Well, thanks, Omar. It's been a delight to have you talk with us today. My name is Maureen Larkins, and I'm with Profiles of Positive Role Models, and I've been joined today by Omar the Pie Man, who's given us a wonderful insight about being an entrepreneur himself, and also on assisting other people in becoming entrepreneurs as well. Thanks, and have a wonderful afternoon. If you have any questions about the show, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Maureen Larkins at 822-0970. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
You're watching New Orleans.